Dr. Edhi has PhD in management from B.R. Ambedkar Bihar University in Mirzapur. A faculty of management, 14 years of experience in both academics and corporates. This includes 4 years of rich experience in banking and financial services industry, in corporate sales, counseling, and operated in more than 10 years in the knowledge space, both in training, product and process, and teaching. She has worked for Standard Chartered Bank in her initial career. After this, she moved to the world of academia, and she successfully qualified for UGC NET in the field of management. Wonderful experience on the space of academics, Dr. Edhi. Congratulations. And it's my pleasure to invite you to moderate this session. Now back to you, Dr. Edhi.
Thank you, Dr. Xavier, for giving me such a nice introduction and welcoming me to moderate this session. It's an honor, definitely, to be a part of this, the virtual media conference, the International Virtual Media Conference, and that too on the final day. So definitely, I'm hoping that we'll be having such a very good interaction with the panelists as well as the students will be definitely gaining out of it. So to begin with, I would before the panelists start, I would just like to go to one quote which Ogilvy Mather talks about, the father of advertising, where he says that talent, I believe, that is Ogilvy Mather, David Ogilvy Mather, Mackenzie Mather, when he says that I believe is the most likely to be found among non-conformists, dissenters, and rebels. So to an extent, what we are looking in the field of media is how one can think different, and if the best thinkers can do it, nothing like it. So I very well congratulate the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, and they have come up with a very appropriate and apt theme of the conference, Media, Culture, and Society. And it's very important in the turbulent times of today, because as students and researchers, I very well understand that media has a huge responsibility towards the people and the society, as they are the important stakeholders, they are the consumers, they are also the creators, and they are the ones who are very much impacted. So I think it's the need of the hour to have a discussion on the changing trends in advertising and public relations. And I'm hopeful and I'm sure that the insights which we will be getting from the panelists will definitely be opening more new vistas for both knowledge acquisition and knowledge application for the researchers and students of media and communication of today. So the first panelist who will be starting with today is Dr. Sripati. I welcome Dr. Sripati for this panel on changing trends in advertising and public relations. So he's an assistant professor with Vigyan Foundation of Science and Technology, Guntur, India. And Professor Sripati has a huge experience as an HR in the field of human resource management, marketing, advertising. He has been awarded 3 times with the best performer in teaching from Vigyan University. He has done his PhD in management from Pondicherry University. He has also organized one-day workshop on developing and using case studies for teaching MBA courses. It is definitely very much required in today's arena. He has also organized national level B school meet that is Manifest 2014 at Vigyan's Foundation for Science, Technology and Research University. I invite Dr. Sripati for the panel discussion.
Very good morning, Namaskara and Suprabhata. I'm glad and I'm be a part of this program. It's a great opportunity to discuss and debate on one of the important contemporary issues that's happening in the ad world. And I would like to start my session by playing a tribute to Mr. AGK, who is very popular in the ad world. For those of us who are unaware of him, he's a man born from the land where I'm speaking, from the Andhra Pradesh, and he has created the empire of advertising with some of the greatest brands of all time from India, and like Vimal and Rasna. And he has started his journey in Reliance, and then moved on to establish an advertising empire that has guided the entire ad world in India through Mudra. And it's a matter of pride for Ahmedabad to have such a man creating wonders of advertising in the place. With homage and with tributes to Mr. AGK, I move on, and I would like to present the today's session on some of the themes that are most happening in the ad world: global, digital, social, vocal, local, yet cultural. So if you look at the global advertising spend over years, it's always increasing, and it has no stop. But if we particularly see, television is still ruling on top, followed by the search and digital world, digital media, and e-commerce, social media are still bounding. And we could see that the radio is still there in the market, which many believe has vanished. And if we particularly look at the digital advertising spending worldwide in the past few years, there is constant increase in this spend, and it's expected that it will grow by many fold. And particularly when we look at advertising, the present generations that we are targeting are different from what we have seen in the past. If we make a quick comparison of what people believe in and what kind of technology they are introduced to. So present day defining customers or deciding customers are those from the generation Y and generation Z, probably born after 1980s, those who have seen computers from their early childhoods, and those who are, if you look at the present generation Z, they are born with gadgets. They are very well versed with usage of gadgets than the past generations. So this Gen Z is special. They make up around 40% of all the customers that we have, and they are concerned about the way the planet is going ahead. They are equally ready to volunteer for many causes. They are also concerned. They are also interested in making use of upcoming gadgets and apps. So we need to keep this in mind when we make products, brands, or target any advertisements. Obviously, digital is the undisputed market that the world is looking at, and a classic example could be that of this. So what we see on screen is a very normal newspaper of the Hindu, very popular newspaper. And once when we look at this, we could see that why we log into a website is for the purpose of accessing news and snippets of news or updates on news. This is the actual version of the newspaper without any, with ad blocker. You could see there are no advertisements. But this is the original version, what a customer sees when he opens the hindu.com. So you can find striking differences between these two pages. So they are specific, targeted, and they are focused on the customer that is using. Particularly if you see why there is an advertisement about a PGDM program, because I might have used a keyword called MBA or management when I am searching, and they are targeting the housing and finance loan scheme, and they are also looking at my vacation time. They want me to go and visit Kerala. So this is the way that digital world is exploding and using the platform, web platform, to target advertisements and use the space. If you could see, not just 50% of the space is used by the original for the original purpose of airing news. Much of the space is left for advertising. So this is the space which the businesses build on and live on. For those of us who are unaware of the digital jargon, it builds on creating an engaging website and optimizing the search engine, which means that whenever a customer uses a keyword, our websites should be ranked, and the keyword that they use should lead to our website. We optimize the content in such a way, and creating the specific content related marketing targeted with targeted customers in mind to generate leads. And also looking at email marketing and social media marketing are integral parts of this digital marketing. And we use pay-per-click, which will help us in driving more volumes of customers and encashing on them by paying each converted successful customer. And there's transformational and transformational social and cultural vibes happening in the world. The way people think, their behaviors have changed, their thought process has changed. If we see the previous generations and present generation, there is a striking comparison. We cannot make any good comparison. There is a lot of change in the thoughts and mindsets. So this advertisement may offer you an example of revisiting and understanding how the thought process has changed. The tasks, the household activities that once used to be only exclusive for women are now being promoted as a shared tasks or shared family activities. Women are being portrayed, once women were portrayed as confined to kitchens, now they are being given ample space on every other market. They are being promoted as self-sustained. So there is a lot of inclusivity going on in the ad space. So while we are designing advertisements and while we are trying to create brands, we need to keep in mind that we also ensure that this inclusivity is not missed. And there is other sort of transformational thought process happening where the present generation is against any kind of divisive or any kind of division in the form of race, color, creed. So recent legal battles that are fought by these brands that you see on screen are an example of this. Some of them have played tactics and tried to change that fair to glow, but still it did not work. And not only just these brands, but all these celebrity endorsers who have been associated with this with these brands are also into troubles with the kind of current ongoing legal battles. And on the other hand, promoting equality, neutrality, and inclusiveness is an underlying message that we see in present day advertisements. There is inclusion of transgenders, women, religious, all forms of religions, and there is an inclusion of social classes to be a part of these advertisement campaigns, and there is an inclusion of mother, father, parents equally to share their works and share their love and affection towards kids through the advertisements. Now, why companies are using these media is because this is what the current society is understanding and trying to digest and make it a normal to treat all the other groups, other stakeholders equally. And advertising itself is an emotional attachment where we want our customer to get connected to us through some form of emotion. So touching the emotional moments is very important. Some of the advertisers have been very successful in this area. Every movement that is possible, every opportunity that is possible has been well utilized by these advertisers to make the most of their business. And particularly, women are portrayed in women and children are given ample space in this market. We could say that they are the leaders that are building in many brands. So you could see that on right side, a woman working on a laptop in the COVID pandemic, during the COVID pandemic. This ad campaign is run by Microsoft at the year end. And it speaks a lot about what the company wants to say, how they are empowering the women, how they want to see the women doing multitasking, managing everything, and doing their professional work also. And the world has changed from the powerful, iconic people to the tiny, influential. On one hand, the world is using the most top class celebrities who are highest paid, highest grossing players and movie actors who are successful. On the other hand, a little amount is spent on these other campaigns where tiny, creative, humorous connecting ads are being aired. So while designing ads, we should also think that we need not invest huge amounts, or celebrity endorsement is not the ultimate way. There are many other creative ways through which we can promote our products. But still, some companies have become been mindful of the roots. Every product, every brand needs to keep this in mind, that what are the values on which they are built. So a classic example is that of what you see on screen is an age-old ad aired by Union Bank of India, where the father of the nation and his wife, Kasturba Gandhi and Mahatma Gandhi, are claimed to have joint account, which is a promotional ad designed for promoting joint accounts. And continuing the same saga, they still want to use the values that they believe in. They still continue the recent advertisements also portray Gandhi, and they try to promote the value system that they believe in. Like the tagline says, "Good people to bank with." And symbolic representations also continue on the other hand, where we cannot use the direct product's performance. The advertiser prefers to make use of symbolic representations, like the one you see in the advertisement. This is an OH advertisement, out of home, designed to indicate the power of Orient fans. But in the current times, recent times, the company has rebranded itself and wants to say everything through this. No captions, no words, but simply it says powerful yet silent. The reason why Dhoni is represented is because they want to say that this is powerful yet silent. And advertisements are also responsible while being creative, which is a little with a little touch of creativity. They try to present themselves to be more responsible also. So this ad, this recent hit ad by Nescafe Gold, says "Don't drink and drive," but also tries to promote to go with a Nescafe coffee. More responsible advertising has come from some social media apps also. Sorry, so some of the important products like Truecaller. Truecaller is against women harassment, so it says, "Stop calling me baby, but first stop calling me." Creative representation of what Truecaller intends to tell. Customers have become vocal. We need to keep in mind that everything that we air, everything that we present may not be acceptable to them. We need not to teach the customers what they are supposed to do. So don't teach the customers, otherwise you have to face social backlash. So 2 consecutive campaigns, ad campaigns going wrong. You can imagine what may be going on with the ad team, which spends hundreds of hours dedicated to launch big campaigns. And ultimately they see a backlash. They see that they fail and they have to rethink, take back. So this is a classic example of Tanishq, which has faced backlash due to their controversial presentations. And swag and localization has become the mantra. Many of the local supporters, many of the companies have become supporters of local brands, local promotion. We should keep in mind that when we are working on a land, particularly when we are talking about Indian ad space, now it has become more crucial to present ourselves, to be connected in some way to the local businesses. So what you see on the screen, all these products, which once remained calm and silent to only compete with the global markets, now they have become vocal to support the locals. They are proudly claiming that we are Indian. And some companies which are MNCs, they could not claim to be local, but still they have used other spaces, other ways of representing themselves. Like you see the Coke's effort, like it says "Tumar Bengal, Tumar Maja." So Maja in Bengali, how does it taste? It tastes the same, but they want to add, they want to claim that we are also trying to become more local. Or this Pepsi ad that presents Salman Khan. And revitalized revenues are being used. Unforgettably, radios are still on top. They are being used as an important ad space. You could see the ad revenue by quarters, by years in the graphs. And public relations have taken a new dimension. The influencer marketing has come onto the surface. Because we are running short of time, I'll try to end the session in a few with 1 or 2 slides. Social media Instagram influencers have come up. There are millions of followers for each of these social media influencers, and with one click they can generate volumes of business for us. So if we want something to be said with a big voice, these influencers can do that job. There are new and emerging profiles that are coming up. So once the marketer wants to promote their products, they need to look at these profiles and find out that who are suitable to their products. Though a history, it has been a recent hit, we could say flash hit in terms of top TikTok influencers in India. But there are still battles going on that how it can rebound and come back. And kids, are they also into PR? No longer, but they're not kids anymore. They're reading all spaces. So who can imagine? They say kids are gods. Yes, kids are gods for ad professionals, because a simple advertisement on Coca-Melon can give you a subscription of 109 million people. So like that, if we look at the space for kids, they have become a big hit. YouTube is paying huge amounts to these kid influencers. And new battlegrounds have come up, like who doesn't know about T-Series and PewDiePie or Logan? These are the top YouTubers who are fighting on the space YouTube, new battlegrounds. There is war going on between these people to claim supremacy and to claim the top positions. And if we want to learn from learn how to build PR, ad professionals must look at this lesson. A recent hit who doesn't need any introduction in India. So this man has become an icon for social causes, and nobody denies that the way he has used the COVID-19 pandemic to build his personality. We should learn and understand that how we can take a lesson from this and build a good brand or advertising media. And lastly, we should not forget, all this comes with terms and conditions that apply. There are watchdogs, there are regulatory agencies, bodies that are always having an eye on us, advertising space. And with the government of India taking up the recent amendment to Consumer Protection Act, it has become a big issue. Now the consumer has been redefined. Anyone who is offline, digital, doing teleshopping, direct selling, anything, they come under the consumer. And there is CCPA to protect consumers. And we should also consider that not just the advertisers, the manufacturers, service providers, celebrity endorsers, all of them are responsible for any form of misleading or false claiming advertisements. And there is a possibility of imposing hefty fines up to 10 lakhs or imprisonment if they claim anything wrong. So this is a smart and short snippet of how the world of advertising has changed over a period. With this, I close. I thank you all for bearing with me and giving me this opportunity. Particularly, I thank Dr. Robi and Varsha and other team of Navrachna University for giving me this excellent opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Shripati.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shripati, for giving us such a very interesting manner regarding all the advertisements and the recent changes which has taken place. And I think these are very relevant for everyone, for us over here, and for this is a conference to know about it. And thank you for your insights into this. I now welcome Dr. Suparna Naresh, a professor of having a quite vast experience as far as advertising and journalism is considered. She still considers journalism as a passion, and she is a wide known person in advertising and media. She has co-authored 2 textbooks, Introduction to Mass Communication, Media and Law and Ethics. Dr. Suparna Naresh has been teaching in academics various subjects for close to 28 years in various colleges in Bangalore. She holds a PhD from Bangalore University in Mass Communication and Journalism, and she's associated with Christ University, deemed to be university, for almost 12 years. So it's a pleasure to have Dr. Suparna Naresh with us as a part of this panel. And I think it will be very, very interesting to listen to her and gain some other more beautiful insights in this area of advertising and public relations. Welcome, ma'am, to this panel.
Thank you, Dr. Riddhi, and thank you, Dr. Shripati, for such an informative and very interesting presentation. I loved it. Hope I can, do justice as a, succeeding presenter. All right, if somebody can just start my. PPT. The PPT is with the team.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'd like to give a caveat. My presentation is largely looking at peacetime as a schedule. I'm not looking at, when we're talking in terms of recent contemporary trends, I'm overlooking the pandemic period, because that is an entirely different field, and it requires a lot more, I think, debate and discussion. When I'm pitching the idea of contemporary ads and PR, I'm largely looking at maybe till end of 2019, before the pandemic ever hit us. So I would like to wish it away. I know it's not that easy. It's still very much part of our lives, the virus. But I'm looking largely at advertising and PR from the point of view of before all these things uncovered, because we all know during the pandemic, businesses have been hit, profits have been hit, right? Creativity has had to innovate itself. So we'll keep that aside for today and maybe come for a discussion on that in future later on. But looking largely at how it was in contemporary times around 2018, 19, before the pandemic ever happened in our lives. Well, next slide, please. So some observations I would like to start with before I talk about the contemporary trends in advertising and PR, because as an academic, most of us know that what we are today is a lot because of things that have happened around us preceding the present. All right. So if you can quickly go over the initial slides. Yeah, both are almost ubiquitous. When I mean that, we all know that constantly we are being hit by ad and PR messages day in and day out. So it is said that nearly 4,000 to 10,000 promotion message is what an average person gets to face every day. Next. Both are equally old, right? Maybe advertising comes first and then PR. Maybe earlier times when we did practice advertising and public relations, we did not have terms to designate them as advertising and PR, but as human beings, we've always known how to sell. For somebody who's interested in knowing how ancient advertising, you should visit Vladi Ponesco and Mario Nucela's advertising. They say that some form of advertising, some form of PR existed even during biblical times, right? So we need to understand that this is a somewhat oldish kind of an approach to talking about our products, our services, and even our brand, if it might be said. Next. It is definitely powerful. We have enough and more effect studies to prove that both ad messages and PR messages have in their own way affected our consumers, the audience. Yes. And they are here to stay. When I said no alternative, we are hoping that there would be alternatives, but for now, we don't see much of an alternative to either of these. They are very much here to stay in our lives. Even in future, I'm sure you will have plenty of advertising and public relations strategies. Next. Yeah, both are needed to promote a product, service, or brand. Some might want to disagree and say there have been brands which have survived without. Maybe there are exceptions, but largely when we generalize, we largely see most people get to know of product, services, or even companies, brands via these stock, tried and tested approaches of advertising and public relations. Next. Yeah. So we come to recent trends in ad and PR. I mean, Dr. Sripathy has led us through a lot of information, right, regarding these. So it's just maybe strengthening and reiterating of what he said with maybe my opinion to it. Okay, it is almost everyone is of the opinion that online is the place to go. And from the slides that Dr. Sripathy showed, that the gap between TVC and online is getting lowered as the days go. So indeed, the future is largely digital space, right? And of course, we can't negate the power of big data and analytics. There's so much information being put, and in recent years, we've seen that a lot of ad agencies and PR professionals are using research to their credit to pitch their idea. Also, the increased use of technology, right? Yeah, I'm over. You can go to the next slide. Yes. We also say that rather than just communicating or attracting the attention of people, it would be worthwhile for companies if we could engage with our consumers or prospective consumers even. And that's a tough job indeed, because we all know as teachers, as viewers of content on public domain, that it's very difficult to keep people engaged with the attention span of people constantly being distracted, right? And there have been several studies also to tell us that, you know, the younger the people, you know, it's very difficult to keep them glued to screens or glued to newspapers. How do you do that? But that is the biggest challenge that we see. And through creativity, I guess, through innovative thought process, that's what's being attempted by ad and PR professionals to keep the people engaged in the message. Of course, we've already heard of the power of influencers. Some of my students have a great fan following, and I'm sure in each one of your lives, you know that there are plenty of people who are not celebrities as we know them to be, but in their own unique way, as everyday individuals, they have a click unto themselves, and who are heard and who are listened to and who have the power to influence. So that is, I guess, a trend that's really caught on in the ad and PR world. Also, we see that no longer is it a domain where you can just walk in and because you're extremely creative, you'll be cherished and nurtured. I see it, right, from experts coming and discussing, etc. A lot of academic knowledge, a lot of research is required, a lot of deeper understanding is required for you to dabble in the field of advertising and PR. It's no longer taken for granted that just your creativity, just a passing experience will, you know, hold good. You need training, you need a lot of academic backing and reading to be successful in this field. That's been realized. Idealizing big names, as my predecessor also said, you need not always depend upon the big time celebrity or big names to endorse a product. Small names, you know, your local neighborhood people also can be somebody in the near future to be able to sell a product, service, or even a brand. Next. All right. It goes without showing, because of content being in public domain and people spending so much time on the digital space, there is increased dependency on user-generated content. You name it, whether it's a film director wanting to put across some idea about a new film that he's planning to even make, all right from that stage to when the movie is released, it's a lot to do with depending upon the public out there. I still remember when Munna Bhai MBBS 2 was planned by the filmmaker Rajkumar Hirani. Right from that point, it's a trend that's caught on and it's still continuing. They said that, you know, we will come up with something as cliched as Munna Bhai MBBS 2. And then some of the marketing people who were being consulted by Hirani, they said, no, I think the idea would be to put it to the public, let them come. And what you do is you generate a lot of curiosity and you keep the people involved with your entire process, and you generate content because of which people are involved. So that became a trend, and it's still, you know, very, very popular, right? So as much as possible, involve the people, let them bring in your content. So whether it's a contest, whether it's an opinion poll or a debate or a discussion, make people part of your entire process of ideating. This way, what happens is you keep yourself relevant for a long time to come. So that is something that, you know, most people are actually making use of. Also, the fact that most of us these days are dependent so much on our handheld devices. So that's also been very well recognized and reconciled by industry. And that's something that they are constantly keeping in mind, mobile first. I remember, you know, a couple of years ago, I was contacted by a content creator from the US, and they said, ma'am, with your knowledge of, say, industry as well as academia, your students, human behavior, human, attitudes as is, we would like you to do something for us. If you could get students to reduce the chicken soup for the soul stories, meaning didactic stories for 2-line stories, and we are planning to put those in a handheld device, so that whenever some message comes from a company to buy something, it will have an add-on short story which comes from the collection of Chicken Soup for the Soul. We all have heard Chicken Soup for the Soul and many such influential stories for how to change our lives kind of, modalities. So that was something that, really put a spark in me, this idea that you could create a story and tell that in 2 lines. Why? Largely because of the platform. So the platform has influenced creativity and vice versa. So these days, they're largely looking at cell phones as a platform, how to showcase your product, your brand, your creativity on the cell phone itself. So that's something that's, a trend that's caught on. Also something that I have noticed, and many people, keep coming and telling this to us, that seniors are quitting well-established jobs in the industry, having put 20, 25 years, and are willing to start new afresh in the field of advertising and PR. And they're eager to do things differently, break norms, break traditions, and take on the risk, willing to take a risk and experiment, I guess, is the next big trend. Yes. Also, this is something that I think Dr. Sripati also mentioned, that it's no longer the big companies that generally get to be showcased globally. It's the smaller niche companies that are doing excellent work, right? Because I guess new ideas, new blood, all those things add on to make them as the best place to go to for ideating and coming up with creative ideas. I think that is the last slide for recent trends. I would like to say that whatever it is cliche, though it might seem, content is still superior and customer is still the king. So if that is kept in mind, I guess, you can trounce a lot of obstacles in your way. Next is. All right. Based upon present, I would like to just maybe get a look at what future, might be like because of the present. Better and increased use of technology, which has already begun. I think increased use of that is in future. Visual storytelling is something that many of my students come back to and tell. For example, MX Players, Takatak is something that came as a rejoinder to banning of TikTok. They said you can make short videos, 12 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and you need not be an industry expert to do this. We can put the product name or the brand and in fact tell a story of the product and the company through these short videos, Insta Reels. Those are the things that definitely is going to pick up in the future. Customized, tailored ads, which we saw during the pandemic. Cadbury's was doing a very good job of not only advertising their own products, but also local. So meaning maybe they're being a little more selfless, I would say, and include others in there. So that kind of a thought process also is working. As I've already touched upon mobile ads. Pragmatic ads, definitely targeting a specific based upon our algorithm and how we use the digital space. Ads are going to be that much more tailored and specific to the customer. My last slide.
Suparna ma'am,
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, ma'am, can you please wrap it, because we have.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. This is my last slide. All right. Convergence, blurring of lines between advertising and PR. It's not going to be specific only to OTT, and grudging acceptance of advertising and public relations, something that most of us are going to, because all these years, advertising was the big brother and PR was the poor second cousin. That might also change because both will come together, converge, and build a more stronger approach to promoting product, services, and philosophy. I have 3 examples. That's okay. You don't have to run it because if you're running short of time, I just put these 3 ads, which list of ads, for example, Pampers ads for Virat Kohli. They have come up with something, a whole list of advice to Virat Kohli from dads, how to raise kids. So what Dr. Sripati was talking about, inclusivity, breaking stereotypes. Those are things that's happening. That's a list of ads and list of PR campaign, please. If you can just show that, my last slide. Next one. Yeah. All right. Touch of Care, Manyata for Mom, for safe childbirth, and Mumbai Lifeline 3, connecting the unconnected, and Brand British Airways. These are some of the top PR campaigns that all of us look towards for great creative thought process that's come out in recent years. Thank you.
Thank you, Suparna ma'am, for giving us a detailed idea as to what the recent trends are in advertising and PR. And I would just, in the question answer session, I would just like that if you can just talk about the content is still superior and customer is the king. I thought that, one of the most important aspects we definitely should learn more about it. That yes, whether, when we talk about that message is the medium or medium is the message. Is that right?
Yes, yes, definitely, ma'am. Definitely.
Yes. So we'll be discussing that. I take pleasure in introducing our third panel for the day, third panelist for the day. And he has a huge experience as far as this area is concerned, and a very well-known person as a field of research as well as an academician. So I welcome Dr. Patrick S.D. McCartney for this panel for media, culture, and society as a part of contemporary trends in advertising and PR. He is a PhD holder in anthropology from Australian National University. He has done various experiences. He is having wide range of past work experiences in the field of teaching in and linguistics as a casual copy editor, as a linguist, and many more of the aspects we are very he is currently works as a consultant writer, freelance copy editor, and curriculum developer. He has been awarded by as for the doctoral candidate scholarship, Australian postgraduate award, and also prominent vice chancellor's travel award. So widely read and a widely traveled person, he has been awarded with the postdoctoral fellowship in Japan. And previous to the discussions which we are having, I'm very curious to know that how he associates yoga and as far as teaching and research is concerned. Very happy to have you here as a part of this panel, and everyone is excited to listen to you. You can begin.
Okay, I'm ready to talk. Can you see my video? You can see me, huh?
Yes, yes, we can see your video, though.
You can see all my nice, lovely plants
Yes, Dr.
in Japan. Okay, great. Thank you for inviting me. It's a great pleasure and honor to share this really interesting panel. I've enjoyed it. So I'll share my screen right now.
Sir, you are given the screen sharing rights. You can share the screen.
I want to share my PDF.
Just a second.
That I have.
Yes, sir, you can share. We have given the screen sharing rights to you.
Oh, okay. No, that's weird. I don't know what's happening. Oh, I know. Hang on a sec. Sorry for the delay. Can you see it now?
No, sir.
How about now?
No. Dr. Patrick, you first open your PDF file and then you share the screen and go to that particular tab.
Okay. I'll try it again. Where is it? Oh, it's not letting me share it. I don't know why.
Okay, what you can do is there is this chat box where you can share the file so the ICT committee can share from here.
Okay. I'll drag it in there.
Meanwhile, Dr. Sripati can answer the queries that we have in the chat box.
Yes, I'm coming to that. Okay. Okay, I'm glad that I have a question. I was expecting such good analysis from the audience. When we look at the ad space, so the particular question was about bowing down to backlash by the media. When we say the media, it's not just we are looking at news or print media. So advertising space, commercial advertising space is different from what you see in news and print media. So we are not here journalists. We are not, for example, particular case about Tanishq by Tata. It's not just a case of promoting an idea itself. They are trying to promote a brand through a controversial idea. So they are trying to promote a brand called Ekatva, a new series launched by the company to promote. I mean, they promote their jewelry for a purpose, and to promote it, they are trying to use a cause, imbibed cause of a recent controversial issue in India called love jihad, which is a much debatable issue. So from a socially conscious person, you may like to promote such ideas. It's very good. Being a print media or news media, you may want to promote such ideas and entertain equality. But being an ad professional, why do you want to enter into controversy? Are we here to give a message, or are we here to promote products? So that's the first thing that we need to look at. So our priority is to promote our products first.
Fine.
Okay. Now I think Dr. McCartney is online, available. We'll continue later. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yes, out to you, Dr. McCartney.
Okay. I sent you an email with the PDF. Did you get that?
I'll just check.
Maybe you can share it.
Did you mail it to me or to the committee?
The committee, I suppose, the NUV media.
Yeah, fine.
Yes, sir. We'll share it in a few minutes.
Okay. Sorry for the technical issue.
All right, sir.
So if you can just use the PDF and share it, then.
Yes, sir. We are trying.
Okay. Just let me know when you're.
You can start with the introduction.
Yeah,
it's completely
okay.
New area for all of us, what you are going to talk.
Yeah, okay. So I'll just start. I mean, I have some slides, and if we don't get them, you can look at them later, I suppose. So I'm going to talk about branding with yoga and how yoga is used in different ways. And ultimately, my message is that what yoga is depends on the context in which it is used and the intention behind that use. So I'm going to show some examples of that from India and from Japan mostly, and a little bit from other parts of the world. So we'll be looking at the ideas of yoga through time and space. Now, just a little bit about what I do normally is that I look at the biographies of yoga and Sanskrit. And I've been recently thinking or working, I'm actually writing a book about Malakam, you might know. So I'm on the second slide now.
Sir, we have shared the screen.
Yeah, okay. So I'm writing a book about Malakam actually at the moment. I'm sure you know what Malakam is. It's like pole yoga, I guess is one way to think about it. If you go to the next slide. So in terms of like looking at yoga and Sanskrit, it's kind of difficult to think about them separately. They're so intimately connected in the way that they're used for advertising. And one way in which they connect is this idea of a kind of ancient or archaic modernity. You know, Sanskrit is a really old, amazing language, and it's also kind of framed in the same way that yoga is, as kind of being good for the environment. And so they both run on a logic or a mood, a romantic mood that yoga and Sanskrit will help us, you know, kind of heal the earth in a way. And that is how you come to look at this idea of Sanskrit and yoga being a lifestyle. So if you go to the next slide. So one way that I look at this is through advertising in wellness tourism, and you can see from this flow chart that yoga tourism is kind of considered to be a part of wellness tourism. And just quickly, the difference between wellness and medical tourism is that the first one is, so the kind of wellness tourism is proactive and medical tourism is reactive. So you're a medical tourist if you go to some place to get surgery, for instance. And the Incredible India campaign, the Reboot 2.0, has been quite popular and successful but it's interesting in how it uses the same kind of colonially constructed Orientalist imagination narratives around yoga, and Asia more generally being spiritual and sacred and mystical. And so that's just the way it is. So the next slide. So how this comes together in terms of a particular, how like imagination comes into advertising and then can find its way into policy, and then international law even, is something that kind of gives the flowchart of how I chase or follow narrative and through advertising. And so this slide presents an interesting one around the idea of Swadeshi development, and how Modi ji has said many times that a yogic lifestyle is a powerful instrument to tackle climate change through changing our lifestyle and creating consciousness. Now, it's an interesting statement because it says a lot, but also doesn't say much at all about what a yoga lifestyle is and how do you create consciousness. It's, you know, it's quite fuzzy. So it runs on affect, it runs on emotion, like what our previous speaker was talking about. And so it leads into this idea of the Sustainable Development Goals around sustainable tourism and development. So I've been looking at yoga tourism and the policies, particularly in Uttarakhand, around that. So if you go to the next slide, here you can see on the left is the blue colored charts. They show foreign tourist arrivals to India and what's happened as a result of COVID. So in terms of using yoga tourism for development, it is currently kind of hitting a rough patch. And the figures on the right just show the increase in foreign tourist arrivals. But you'll be surprised to know that for the total amount of tourists that come to India, only a very small amount, less than, I think even 5 or 10% specifically come for yoga. So there's a huge actual kind of growth potential in that market. So please go to the next slide. So what is yoga? You know, there's so many different ways you can talk about yoga and what it is and what it's not. And it's a very prickly topic for many people. People have very strong ideas about what yoga is and what it isn't. And as I was saying, it depends on its context and how it's framed and the purpose behind that particular framing of it to what it becomes. And so it becomes many different things. And if you look in the Shabdakosh, the Sanskrit Shabdakosh, you see that yoga has so many different meanings, maybe more than any other word in the dictionary. But I've become quite interested in this particular phrase, the yoga way of life, and we can kind of trace that back to the Dayananda Saraswati and the Arya and Brahmo Samajas 150, 70 years ago. This is when you kind of start to see this idea of this particular phrase come into effect. So if you go to the next slide. Yeah, so here is an interesting thing. If we start maybe on the right with Ravi Shankarji. So what is yoga? It's funny how in this particular website, they say that yoga is both 5,000 years old and 10,000 years old. So if you look at the two red arrows, you know, that's just interesting. I'm not sure why that's there. And if you look at the green arrow, Ravi Shankarji says that yoga is not exercise and asana. And if you look at the square above that, you know, it says that yoga is good for imbibing the, you know, the complete essence of the way of life. So you see this rhetorical, this phrase, way of life, used. Once you see it now, you'll see it everywhere, I think. But so I published an article in The Wire just last week, and this is the title of it, and it's looking at the way that the Ministry of Sport and the other ministries, Ayush, have come together to reformulate yoga as a sport, but they amputated 7 of the Ashta Angas of Patanjali's yoga to just have yoga asana. But it's still yoga, right? So you can see how there's so many competing ways in which yoga is framed. So please go to the next slide. So we can go all the way back to the Rig Veda. It's first mentioned in the first mandal, but this is the 10th mandal, which is one of the later editions of the 10 books, you can say, in the Rig Veda. And so, but all of the first mentions of yoga have to do with a very specific martial application in war, and through the term yoga kshema of acquiring property and securing prosperity, which is quite different to the kind of later Upanishadic and contemporary ideas of, like, you know, shanti shanti, om om om, kind of, you know. So and this particular definition of yoga is quite often left out of popular contemporary definitions or histories of yoga if you go to any yoga website, for obvious reasons, I think. Please go to the next slide. But then you find other definitions of yoga, you know, through time, and this one is, you know, has nothing to do with war or with stretching or asana. Yoga is the proper application of a meaning of a sentence. So yeah, just one more example. So the next slide, please. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about how yoga is kind of advertised in Japan, where I've been living now for the last 4 years, and I've written a few papers on yoga tourism in Japan, and I focused in one particular paper on looking at the yoga hybrid of Zen yoga. And so it becomes, it's in terms of kind of market space, it's quite small, I would say. But nonetheless, you can see how it captures these ideas of cherry blossoms in spring. And to give you an idea of the type of yoga, it's normally, if you're familiar with Shivananda yoga, this very kind of slow, gentle kind of form. It's not the power yoga necessarily, so it attracts a particular kind of person to it also. So please go to the next slide. So here's a couple more kind of ways to look at it. In terms of, like, in Japan, yoga is definitely framed and advertised for women, and not necessarily for fitness and kind of athletic health, but it's more about beauty and sculpting, possibly, like what Japanese or maybe East Asian societies consider more to be what a woman should look like. And then you get these ideas of face yoga and yoga poses for whitening the skin, so Fair and Lovely. I've got a paper coming out on this also, on face yoga. So yeah, it's just interesting. 99% of yoga consumers in Japan are women, which is different to the world average, where it's more like about 75% women. So next slide, please. And here you see it in really kind of stark terms. So this is a subway platform in Nagoya in Japan, and you can see it. So the bottom left one, it says Hoto Yoga Studio, and it's a 24-hour fitness gym basically. And you can see on the platform, so there's kind of two angles to the same platform. You can see that there are actually two yoga posters. The first one on the left with the donkey head might not be so recognizable, but that's for a yoga studio chain that has 500 studios in it. And the other one is also for Hatha yoga. So hot yoga is very much the most popular form of yoga in Japan, I would say. But you can see that how it's within the kind of spatial distribution of it and its relations. The two other posters on the platform are also, you know, they have to do with feminine beauty products. So that's where yoga sits in East Asia, definitely. Next slide, please. And the last example I just want to show of how yoga as a thing, as a sign, a symbol, has how it evolves is through identity politics and social justice. I think of this type of identity yogas, which is a term I just thought up of about an hour ago, as just another sort of yoga hybrid. And what I mean by that is that the yoga industry, the wellness industry in the world is very saturated. If you think about the industry life cycle, it's in a mature, saturated phase. And so that's why you see all of these different types of yoga just keep coming and coming and coming, because everyone's trying to find, you know, a distinction and some sort of niche. And in some way, I think that we can look at these identity or social justice types of yoga in that light. And so that's why we see Dalit yoga and this Wayapa Wurruk, which is an indigenous Australian yoga hybrid. And then the one on the far right is around kind of this idea of BIPOC or BAME, so for people of color. But you can see by the Black Fist that it has a very much, it's embedded in a critical race theory and cultural Marxist type of context. So that in itself is just, you know, kind of interesting. So the next slide, it's my last slide, I think. So this is just to kind of give you one striking example around the idea of Egyptian yoga, which started in Chicago in like the 1970s, and it's grown. There are now many different styles and brands, and people have branched out from the original kind of people involved in kind of starting this thing, and it's become quite popular amongst kind of the Black population in North America for certain. And so basically they took this idea of hieroglyphics having yoga asana, and they say that yoga is actually being given to India from ancient Egypt. And then when you get into the social justice stuff, the theology of yoga from a social justice perspective, if you look at the point number 3, a decolonized yoga honors indigenous and heterogeneous cultures around the globe, including in ancient African civilizations that have contributed to yoga's evolution and preservation. So if you want to be a good yogi and be doing yoga correctly, you, according to these tenets of this yoga theology, are required to agree that yoga actually came from Egypt. So I'll just leave that with you all, knowing what you probably think about that. And we'll go to my last slide. So my closing points are what I started with. Yoga is not one thing. Its meaning and application continue to evolve. It's important to think about it critically and avoid essentializing its biography in any kind of context. I think to do honor to yoga and its roots, we should think about it, you know, kind of try to reduce error and maybe turn down the kind of the romantic mysticism side of the narratives. So thank you. I'm sorry for the hiccup at the beginning.
Thank you, Dr. Patrick. For such an information as to the different countries where yoga has been probably is being used. Being from the Indian origin, also lots to learn from other countries where it is being implemented, and a beautiful description you have given of the way it has been followed, and it has been made a part of the Narendra Modi campaign these days. So definitely it's a learning for everyone here as to how we can use the companies can use it as a part of their content and media strategy. Thank you, Dr. Patrick, for sharing your views on this regard. So as we have listened to the three panelists, when Dr. Sripati talked about the trends as far as the media is concerned, and he gave us some very beautiful, we can say that trends which talks about global, vocal, local, cultural. So yes, a lot of emphasis has been given on these days by the companies in order to understand the cultural aspects also. So even the multinational companies, when they go into and touch the Indian markets, they have to take into consideration the local flair as well. And also when he mentioned that, yes, how Sonu Sood, he became a brand ambassador. So not being just as a Bollywood hero, but then how with his heroic deeds of helping people during the COVID times, so how he has created, the way influenced the society and the youth as to think in this direction. So I would some of the viewpoints or reflections I can share with you all for this particular session is that, yes, to begin with, are we thinking that advertising needs to reorient itself in the age of interactive social media? Is that right? Why do we have to focus on shorter ads, shorter advertisements, which not only give the message but which also calls for an action? So previously it was that advertising and public relations mostly concentrated on what is the content which is being given, or what is the message which is being given to the to all the stakeholders. But as of now, when we talk about the recent trends in advertising and public relations, we said that yes, advertisements also play a very important role on calling for action. So how much it can be short on all the platforms, whether it's online, offline, OTT, over the top platform, and OOH, so hoardings. So it is that when people are mostly glued to their mobiles, so how much time they will be able to take out when they are traveling. So mostly it's the hoardings where they can also, the digital messages can be conveyed in the hoardings. So this is one research which has come, that how you can have your message across to the various people who are associated. So how digital media can have an OH platform as well, out of home category, that is the hoardings. And another important trend which is being seen is that how cost is being shifted. So the advertising cost overall has been shifted to getting more into the subscriber base. So mostly it was previously the companies used to be from the television, but now it is how many number of subscribers you are having, whether it's Netflix and Amazon. So it has been shifted to the subscriber base. More than the floating message, it is focusing more on engagement. So yes, most the panelists have rightly talked about that how engagement is the key for today's advertising and both public relations. When Suparna ma'am talked about that, yes, it is very much important that yes, how you need to engage your audience, whether it is in relation to females understanding the needs, whether it is relation to women empowerment, and whether it is relation to giving a new message for them. So yes, advertising is now considered more as an engagement tool. Another important aspect which is nowadays seen is use of data and analytics. So previously companies were, taking into consideration the television audience measurement or the TAM ratings. But as of now, it is mostly that how successful your advertisement or public relations campaign is through the use of data and analytics. And it is mostly the measurement is through big data and the real-time data and the feedback. Another important aspect which can be seen as a part of the discussion is that how much companies can take the stand. So brand standing. So brand standing, where customers want to be associated with those brands. Many examples have been given, like Cadbury's. They want to be associated with those brands which have a strong connection, and they are more loyal to the companies who are willing to take a position. So that is what we have seen during the COVID times. When the companies had those ads, they were willing to take a take a stand as to supporting the health workers, because they were the also ones who were very much affected. So companies and customers are loyal to those companies who take a stand or take a position. And those companies who are not taking that position, they do not want to be loyal to them. And where we have seen, as far as both PR and advertising, so social responsibility, which was previously the forte of most of the government initiated advertising campaigns and PR, has now come to the companies as well. So social responsibility is becoming now a part of the mainstream advertising and public relations. With this, I would like to have few questions from the panelists. The first question I would like to have from Dr. Sripati. So we have already seen from the slides which you have shown us that how children, kids, teenagers are being heavily influenced by advertising. You have shown us that, yes, YouTube influencers are there, TikTok influencers are there. So do the companies need to understand more when you have to have more of content related advertising?
Yeah, truly said. On one side, companies are also focusing on content-related advertising. Like we said, digital space is being largely used for content-related advertising. So there are measures to do with this. Like they place targeted ads and pay-to-click ads, and they try to use the Google AdSense space or on any social media platform where they can place a targeted advertisement that is meant for a specific audience. But content marketing on mass media may not be possible, like traditional mass media, which we see on televisions and newspapers, which is not possible to use content
Dr.
marketing.
Sripati, can I just interrupt you?
Please.
And can you tell us the importance of a compelling narrative? And I would ask other panelists also to join in this discussion, that what do we understand by a compelling narrative needs to be given to the audience, so that in today's world also they feel that they are connected?
Okay, compelling narrative, I understand as there is a story behind every product and brand that we try to associate. Like you were saying, brand association is very important for a customer to look at our brand and try to get connected with it. And the closer the narrative, compelling narrative is, the probability of getting attached to the brand also increases. Maybe if we put up a set of audience who can closely match their stories with what they see on screen or on their digital space, they would definitely try to connect with the brand and try the brand first, then get accustomed or adjusted to that brand. That's my view. I would like others also to join. Maybe they give their views.
Yes,
I agree with Dr. Sripati when he says, stories are very important, and that's why we've seen the past couple of years series of ads coming out from banks. Earlier bank advertisements were largely to do with investments and shares and information which were quantifiable and things like that. But if you look, the Axis Bank, in fact, the irony is, Axis Bank, I think, showed a lot of a financial problem later, but these ads came sometime 2018-19, and they were very, the Dil Se series, right? They said that banking is not only about money or investment or numbers, it's about people, right? So Dil Se was an entire series that showed a pregnant woman, she has to withdraw money. So those kind of thought process going behind the scenes, where, as Dr. Sripati rightly said, in order to be able to connect with everyday stories of all of us, like the common man, it can be any person, one of us, who wants to maybe, withdraw money at the right time. And if you have the right people behind, understanding our concerns, maybe that's the right kind of bank you bank with. So those are the kind of stories we are largely interested
So Suparna ma'am, can you just tell us one or two instances where this compelling narrative can also break certain stereotypes in the society?
For example, ma'am, I had this thing in my PPT, but due to lack of time, I couldn't show the recent McDonald's Eat Quality ad that's come about, right? I mean, generally, when we talk of people who are differently abled, right, we paint them as a sorry figure to be taken care of by rest of society. That's not how, McDonald's has portrayed them at all, and which is a nice thing. It shows person, who's fully, in charge of her life. She might be differently able, but she doesn't need assistance from anybody. Least of all during pandemic, when all of us are so conscious about cleanliness, hygiene, she opens the door, even though she's differently able. She doesn't have a hand, which is seen very clearly on screen, but she's able to open the door on her own without needing assistance. See, these are the kind of stories which will largely start appealing to people, and will also, there's this question that says, what about controversy and so on and so forth. This will actually bring down controversy if you're representing differently able people, right? And brands are recognizing that, showing people in the right context, keeping, reality also in place, right? So that's a very inspiring, very motivating ad, and it's definitely not patronizing, meaning they are not giving lip service. They're not doing it for the sake of doing it. This is a change we'd like to see. And I'm sure in future, we'll see a lot of companies doing this, showing people as they are, what and all, with problems, with difficulties, but they are facing. I think in the pandemic, we saw a lot of the ads about a woman who paints, but she doesn't have 2 hands. She does it all with a leg. It used to play frequently during the pandemic. Right? I was so inspired, motivated. So a lot more companies, if they were to create such things, I'm sure it'll be easy to speak about the brand, speak about the product, which will be incidental, and the person on screen, the message, the story, will resonate stronger.
I have a couple of points, if I might add them, about yoga in terms of this compelling narrative. I think the Incredible India campaigns, they did a couple of ads, like the yogi and the motorcycle is one of them. You can find it on YouTube. It's a really kind of, it's sort of a weird ad in some ways. When I show it in lectures, people quite often get a laugh out of it, because I suppose from our perspective, non-Indian perspective, it's actually kind of just seen as a bit funny. But that's one example you could go look at in terms of how the compelling narrative is kind of structured. And but where it gets funky in terms of trying to advertise for or with yoga is that for a lot of people, commodifying yoga is considered to be like anti-yogic. It's considered the opposite of what yoga supposedly is. So that creates an interesting kind of double edge in terms of how a compelling narrative ought to be, constructed. So that's it.
So, Dr. Patrick, so as we are already seeing that, mental well-being is considered very important these days, and yoga can be very much useful in it can aid in digital detox. So most of the time people are mostly, into their mobile phones, glued to their mobile phones, and the screen time is causing a lot of worry. So the advertisement campaigns, which were previously more of, the fear of missing out, now it is to joy of missing out. So can you tell me that during this digital age, what companies should take, lessons from yoga and involve and inspire the audiences for digital detox?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if I've really thought about it. So, digital detox. I mean, so currently in this global pandemic and yoga studios are closed down, yoga has gone online.
Basically, when we talk about detox, it is basically cleansing your mind. So
I understand what you mean. I'm just thinking about how that is achieved, particularly in this pandemic, when yoga studios are all closed down and everything has gone online. And I invite you to look at one app. It's called, I think it's called Down Dog.
Okay.
Like they have created this very popular app. So I'm answering your question in the opposite way. It's somehow it's being, yoga is being used in some way to detox the digital world, but being in the digital world, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's one thing I can say. I could say more, but I don't want to hog all the time. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
there are a lot of application, and there are a lot of online yoga teachers who are
Yes.
teaching yoga online nowadays.
Okay.
And you can
So
find them, Instagram and all.
yes. My last question to all the panelists, and then I will invite some questions from the students, from the audience, is if everyone can talk about is, as an advertising professionals, do we need to depend more on consumer research, both qualitative and quantitative? And how to establish trust and build relevance in today's digital age? We can start with Dr. Patrick first.
Oh, so could you repeat the question? I didn't really.
Okay. Do we need to depend as advertising professionals upon more consumer research? So when we say that, it is basically more advertising and public relations is nowadays consumer driven. Is that right? So
yeah, okay.
Consideration, what sort of things need to be done for the consumer research, and how it is helpful in establishing trust and building relevance in today's advertisement and PR world?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I mean, I think it's always a case of there is you have producer and consumer, and they both have ideas about stuff. So I think UX research or user experience plays a part in kind of understanding and market segment analysis. So because I think how yoga is advertised and how yoga is perceived, or yoga advertising is perceived in India, is actually quite different to other parts of the world. And for instance, there is even though yoga is it's popular globally because of the capitalist infrastructure and its commodification through advertising, for the kind of true believing yogi, the commodification of yoga is seen as a negative thing, and it's something to almost be avoided. And then when you see how a lot of the social justice yoga coming through, that includes with it this idea to disrupt and dismantle capitalism, the very thing that made yoga popular.
So, Dr. Patrick, can we say that yoga is helping nowadays in having certain immersive experiences rather than passive experiences?
Well, I mean, it also depends on, we might be even thinking about the different idea of what the term yoga means just between you and I right now, and how, so of course it can. And I think generally, I think when people are talking about yoga, they're talking about, some healthy thing that they do that maybe includes relaxing, some shavasana, some nadi shodhana pranayama or something, some asana, having a healthy, balanced lifestyle. And so that's all kind of nice and good and active. You have to be active for sure, which is actually the first meaning of yoga in the Rig Veda. It means actions. So there you go. We can get all the way back and still be doing yoga in some sense.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Patrick. Can Suparna ma'am, you can give your views on it. That what are some of the essential elements which are there in consumer research, both quantitative and qualitative, and how do you think that advertisements should be more of immersive in nature rather than passive?
Between advertising and PR, I always believe that PR has greater power because it's largely to do with people-to-people connectivity. Having said that, I feel that over the years, advertisers also are not taking their customers or consumers for granted. They do a lot of research. They come up with something good, but at the end of the day, it's still, I think, PR which trounces to be able to get that. And what I feel is a lot of honesty and transparency, if that's brought to the table, and I think that will take these messages a long time. You told, right? I mean, to link it to medium and the message. This is something that we need to keep in mind. If content creators take the audience for granted and assume that all of us are stupid and don't put our minds to these content, then they have it wrong. Increasingly, all of us have so much information at our hands. We can check things through. So that I'm sure they also are aware. And that's the reason why they also are very careful. And that's maybe one of the reasons why somebody asked, why is it that, Tanishq had to bow down to people? And Dr. Sripati said, product is very important. And that's the reason why they played it safe. Yes. I mean, after all, at the end of the day, Tanishq is bothered about its, brand. So for now, at least they've taken a backseat, but it doesn't mean it's the end of the day for that particular conversation. They might take it further some other time when they feel that society or community is ready to, accept the image, accept the communication message that, all religions are good. There is nothing to. So it's all a question of, yes, consumer, to answer your question, ma'am, consumers are very important. Customers are very important. You cannot negate. You have to keep them in mind when you're putting a message across. Definitely. That's exactly what Tanishq has done. And to answer your question about values, Nike was criticized when they took a stand with Colin Kaepernick when he bent down on his knee to be supportive of Black Lives Matter. But 2 years later, every company in the US, including many in India, have said Nike is good for what they did. So it takes courage for a company to, stand. Let's give them time to do something. So I'm sure they will keep that in mind.
Yes. And customer is the king. Okay.
Is the king.
Yes. Dr. Sripati, last question to you. The role of the message versus the medium or the platform, which is more relevant?
Sorry to interrupt you. I would just like to request the panelists.
Yeah, there's just 1 or 2 questions if the audience will ask, and we'll wrap the session.
Yes, ma'am. We have the next session at 11:30. That is.
A quick answer would be like all are important. We cannot overturn or we cannot negate. We cannot try to say that or demean any of these message or media or content. The way that ad professional should look at is that how much of each is important for the product or for the message that they are trying to convey. So in some cases, the content matters more. So for a chocolate like Dairy Milk, what do you have in content? It's a normal chocolate, but the way you project as if it is the love, it is the life thing, the message becomes more important. So that promotes the product. Now, how much of proportion you want to have?
When we are talking about OTT as a platform, mobile as a platform, electronic media as a platform.
Choice of platform is also important because OTT is not for everyone. OTT is not a mass media kind of communication like TVC. So it's specific and targeted, only meant for young adults and those who are not on a conventional platform, those who spend a lot of time on handheld devices only. So that content is different. So we can channelize our advertisements to suit the particular targeted customers who use these OTT platforms also. Like I said, proportion matters.
Dr. Sripati, can the audience, can any questions, are there any questions from the audience?
They can always mail it to us if they.
Yeah, if there are any questions. I think I've really enjoyed the session with all the 3 panelists, and they have, given some very new points and insights as to what the current trends are. And it is equally good for the marketers, for the advertisers, for the PR teams to get to know these and implement it into their day-to-day, activities, as well as the students and researchers, because the researchers are very, very important. They need to know that, yes, this is how things are working. And I have definitely enjoyed this session. Thank you once again, the Department of Mass Communication Journalism, for coming up with such an idea to host a panel for the changing trends in advertising and media. And it is definitely, we will be discussing it later on as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Dr. Idirani, for this insightful session, and a sincere gratitude to all the panelists for your participation in this discussion. And thank you so much, Dr. Xavier, for your time.